Okay, today we're going to go through core connectors. So we're going to start with core connector workflow. We'll also try to kick off the payroll interface connector. So what is a core connector worker, right? So if there is a requirement per se, let's say consider a requirement where you need only changes that happen on a worker within a time frame, right? Let's say within 1 day, give me only changes that happened on the worker. Give me only name changes, give me only address changes, give me only compensation, salary, job changes, organization changes, any change in the set of fields. Like if you have let's say if you have 10 fields, for example, in our assignment, and take our assignment itself. Let's say in our assignment, if you have these are 15 fields here, right? Let's say right now whatever you're creating is only giving you organization or compensation changes that happened in 1 year. But what if you want this as a daily file and you want to identify any changes that happened in any of these fields? Then only include that worker on the file. Let's say if the worker's middle name change, right? And you don't care about middle name because you're only worried about first name and last name. You don't want it to be included on your output file. Let's say they have a nationality change. You don't care about their nationality here. So you just not include them in the file, or the payment elections changed, or something on the job classification, job classifications, job classifications, something which is not in this 15 or 20 fields. If that changed, you don't want it in the output file, right? So when you do it with the report, right, how can you build something like that in a report? Let's say the requirement is simple. Anybody can try. I only want workers who has any of these changes between 2 time frames, between a day, between an hour, between 10 minutes, or between 1 week or 10 days. Any guesses? How can you do it in a report or an EIB? Okay, so one way to do it in an EIB is in a report is look for this username as of a date. Right? You have a calculated field called lookup value as of a date, right? You can do that. You can look for username as of previous date and as of the current date. So you'll build 2 calc fields. You have 2 prompt dates, prompt date and prompt date 2. One prompt is you basically say from date and then to date. Right? Look up username from date and look up username as of to date. Look up first name as of from date. Look up last name as of from date. Look up last name as of to date. So you create a lot of calc fields. For each field, you create a lookup value as of the date, and then compare that in your filter and put an OR condition for all fields. Right? So that's a pretty big development thing, and you can't eventually build something like that. Right? But there are requirements saying I only need change. Right? In that case, what they came up with a concept called connector. Connector can be anything, but the main purpose of that core connector worker is to create these changes only file. So in order to build a connector, you do create integrated system. Then you give it a name, INT 100 or 202. Okay. When you said Croker, oh, sorry, we'll go back, take a step back. I use the same ID, it's going to error out. So I'm going to say work one. Okay. So you select a template here. You basically select what integration you want to build. We have a lot of integration templates here. These are all delivered by Workday. If you see a vendor name, that's a package connector. People call it cloud connector, people call it package connector, they call it different names, but it's basically is integrated with a vendor. Like in this case, it is integrated with Advantia or Aetna, or you scroll down, we have MX, annual tax filing, Anthem. So most of the vendors, right, most of the benefit vendors and everyone, they have pre-built connectors within Workday. We'll get to the package connectors later, but what we are going to look now is core connector. We have different core connectors here. Let's start with worker. Core connector, global worker, that's new. So let's go with core connector, positions, worker. So this template will basically give you an option to look for changes on your work. Click OK. And the first thing you do on a core connector or any core connector or any package connector is to configure the integration service. So what is an integration service? If you want to include a delivery, that's an integration service. You want to retrieve a file, that's the integration service. So everything in here is divided into services. Right. The first thing is worker ESP service. It is automatically enabled, and worker data utilization and exception logs. So these are automatically enabled, optional, but it's automatically enabled. I don't know why. So date launch parameters. So what are the launch parameters of core connector worker? Usually from a due date, right? From what date to what date I need to look changes from. So launch parameters are automatically enabled. Integration maps for the worker are automatically enabled. Configuration maps, these are all automatically enabled. Eligibility rule is also automatically enabled. So you basically decide what workers are eligible on the core connector worker. And then the talent. And then here you see a lot of optional fields. These are all optional. You see an optional field here. So this is a delivery service. If you want to deliver the file to a third-party SFTP server, you select it, you enable it, or you just don't worry about it. Transaction log is if you want to see changes that happen on certain business processes, you can enable it. So in this case, it is not looking for all worker changes. It is only looking for workers who have some transactional changes, and then it looks for data changes. We'll see the data. Sequence generator, yes, I want my file name to be sequenced. CSV option, whether your XML, so whether your core connector output, is it an XML or can we do a CSV as well? So this enables it to automatically get into CSV. But I would go with XML because most of the time we use XML. Document retention, yes, I want to override the default. And then here comes in the worker profile section. So here are all of the services that you can enable. So the output file will include these fields or these functional area fields. For example, I don't want worker profile photo, so I'm not going to enable it. I want personal data section, yes. I want the status like active, inactive, their staffing events like hire, termination, change of, everything, yes. I want their position information, yes, includes their compensation and everything. I don't worry about their contracts, their leave of absence. Yes, let's include their compensation here. Worker identification, yeah. Related person data. Okay, qualification, yeah. Let's leave it for this. Let's enable all these services for now. Just click OK. Then you created a core connector worker right here. You have an alert and an error. So it is basically saying there are some integration attributes enabled for the system integrations that are marked required for launch, but we haven't configured yet. We just created it. We haven't configured anything yet. We just enabled all these services that we want. right? All these personal data, status data, position data, services we want. This first section is basically the services section. Scroll down, you see the attributes, integration maps. So these two are coming because we enable the map. It's automatically enabled, so we're not doing anything there. So these two sections are automatically enabled in the Code Connector worker. And based on the services you select, the attributes and maps basically change. I mean, the count increases or decreases, right? Based on what services you select. So what is an attribute? Like an English word attribute, it says, the true meaning is, it defines a field basically, right? Whether let's say the name, if you have a field, for example, if you have a field called first name, right? An attribute is more like whether it's a legal name or preferred name or something secondary name or additional name, right? So these are attributes. Your first name is your field, but your attributes around that is whether the first name is a legal name or whether the first name is a preferred name. So those are called attributes. Those are defining what type of first name is, right? So it's an attribute. And how do you configure attributes? So it is saying this is required for launch. Version is required for launch, but there is no value. That's why this error is coming out. So let's go back, go to actions, integration system, configure integration attributes. Click on the configure integration attributes. Okay. So you have your output file name. Assign the name of the output file. If you enable the file sequence generator, leaves this value as empty. Otherwise, it must be populated with a valid file name. As we have enabled the sequence generator, this is not required in this case. Otherwise, you would see a required for launch option here as well. Right now, we don't want it because we enabled the sequence generator. We'll configure the file name in the sequence generator later. Output document tags. Excuse me. The output document tags. So these values are tagged to a document, output by integration. So you can mark those. You can tag these files if needed. If your output document needs a tag, so these tags are like deliverable, output document, something you're grouping a different set of documents. It's not necessarily required. The version controls the version of your output file. Yes, I want it, and anyways, it's required for one. We have different versions here. I would always go with 25, the latest one, of course. So outputting multiple supervisors. What is 22? So these are all basically Code Connector updates that are coming in. So from each version, we have Code Connector worker is still in 25. It has new fields. They included new fields with an update. They included new field attributes and everything in there. So keep it to the latest. Output format. Right now, if you see XML is defaulted, you see XML here. But if you want to overwrite XML, you select this option called overwrite default value, this checkbox, and then you can change it to CSV or XML you want. We're going to look at XML only anyway. Including active workers in a full file. So if you're running a full file, you can run a full file and a changes file also with the Code Connector. If you're running, let's say, get all employees in there, get all workers that are eligible. Should I include the termination workers as well? I can check as or I can check no. I would say by default inactive workers are excluded from the full file result. Because inactive workers are like too many. Right? In a big company, like for example, if you have a client with a current employee population of 30,000, there might be 100,000 terminated employees already. Right? So it all depends if you want to include or include.
So in the Delta file, if we don't check that box, so in the Delta file, we won't get inactive employees, Krishna?
Delta file, you will get it. It's just a full file.
It's only full file. Okay.
This is only for full file. delta file will get it. Delta file is based on changes in the field, right? So
Okay.
I would think in the Workday thing here, right? If Workday just includes everyone in the full file, you might get everyone. Like you will get everyone. Like so someone terminated like 15 years back. You don't need this information, right? So that's why they gave this option to exclude them. But for changes, the population will not be that big, so it's fine for you to input that. So that's why they just did include inactive workers in full file option. So name type. So include name type. So this is what I'm saying. Example, what type of names should you include? I think this attribute came up after version 17 or above. So if you go for version below than that, this attribute doesn't make any sense, right? So just click override. Currently it is set to legal name. You can override it. You can include both legal and preferred, or you can leave it to legal. I would go with preferred and also legal. I want both. I included both there. Country ISO code, I'll leave it to 2 alpha. Address type, need to work. Address usage, if you want a different address usage, you can add it here, like business mailing, lockbox, anything. Otherwise, you can leave it blank. It's not required for long. You won't find an address usage type in your output file if you're trying to filter them out. Include private addresses. Currently, it's no. Include only public addresses. Yes. So these are different sets of attributes. Include prior values. Yes, this is one important. Include prior values. Include prior values of attributes containing the previous value for a field. So this is basically determining whether you include a prior value to your integration file or not. I mean changes, right? So should I include the prior and the current value, or should I just include the current value? I would say include prior and the current value for this class. So let's see how the XML looks like as the prior value is included. Job classifications, I don't really care. I don't really care. No. Organized type, specific. No. Include multiple supervisors, yes. And include multiple supervisors. And then click OK. Once you've configured all the attributes that you want, just click OK and you can come back. And if you miss something, no worries. When you look at your output file, you'll know that you missed something. You'll come back. Have one warning event sequence and let's see, I get that. Next thing is you have configured your attributes, legal, preferred, everything. The next thing you would do is go back to Action, integration system, and now configure your field attributes. So until now you configured your attributes, now you are looking at your field attributes. Field attributes are more like they're direct fields on your integration file. So what fields I need to include on my output file, right? So that's the thing here. So whether I include the name data, yes, because I have some attributes that say preferred legal and preferred name anyway. So include my first name. I don't want my middle name. I'll include my last name. And then it can go back. There are 74 fields in here that you can include. Gender, yes. Date of birth, yes. Country of birth, no. Not really, not required, not required, not. You can status, yes. Address data, yes. Include address data. They're all just fields, like the fields that you're picking on your report from the worker object. Same thing. So this code connector also goes by worker object, of course, and get the information on it. And this is also similar to get workers API. The outbound, you have a get workers API that you can use to get information from Workday. So API, code connector also resembles that. First of all, country. If you observe, whenever I'm enabling this, you have these two fields also getting enabled, right? So those two are more like, I don't want to find that. Those two are more like whether this field is required or not. If I don't have a value in this field, whether I error out or whether I include. If I say first name is required and last name is required, the integration will only output records who have first name and last name. The rest of them will be thrown as zeros. They'll notify or they'll create an error on the UI saying that these employees are errored out because they have a blank first name or they have a blank last name. And then the maximum length is more of truncating. Right? If I say maximum length as 10 for first name, last name as also as 10, so it will automatically truncate whatever all the employees first names who reach the maximum of 10 characters. If they exceed the 10 character limit, they're going to truncate. So these are all the services we have enabled. So personal data, configured it. Now the status data. I mean, I don't want to go for each and every field, right? If in case you want everything, you just take this box, include all fields in the output. Sometimes you don't care because you might have a XLT or something after your core connect output, transforming this file and generating only the required field output. Right? So in that case, you just don't care. You output everything you want. Personal data, position data, I just need my position ID, effective date, primary position title. Let's just do that. Compensation, 8 fields only, let's include everything. Total baseline, everything. Identification section. Yeah, why not? I'll include everything. Oh, no, I don't get it. I'll include the ID, identification, ID type, whether what type of national ID is it, and I would say my ID is required. So only people who have ID will be included in the output. So click OK. So now I've configured my field attributes also. Field attributes are also done. We go back to our integration. We have our attributes and field attributes configured. The next step would be map. Before we'll look at field overrides later. But next step would be integration map. So maps are translations, right? You have your external value and you have your internal value. So what is my external value when I get a value in my, so let's say your gender. Right? Workday might have male and female, like the full text male and female, but the vendor or on your output file, you just want M for male and S for female. Right? Those can be configured on your integration map. Here you go, gender. You go add a line. You would say for females, print F, first character, or for male, print M. And if undisclosed, I would print a T for undisclosed. Same as marital status, you have region or religion. Right? Wow. Well, this tracking religion also. Disability, ethnicity, status, you have a lot of fields here that you can map. These are for organizations. I mean, the organization type maps and everything. Hire reason, if you want to map hire reason, let's say you hired someone with fill vacancy and if you want to give a different output, different field values than this hire, rehired fill vacancy, full text, you can do translation. It maps internal value, what is from Workday, and what you want in output file. Okay. So there are a lot of maps that you can configure. Like on your field overrides, it will say whether there is a map for you to configure as well or not. So you can go back to your field override, so field attributes, view field attributes. You can see on your personal data, you can look for gender. You can see the field is mapped using integration map for gender. So you can configure the map there, and it will automatically translate the values for this. So next one will be go to action. Notification. Yeah, never seen it. Configure integration notification. So these are more like notifying a team on the status of an integration. Since it trigger the notification on a launch, and why would you know if an integration is launched? I would mostly know that the status of an integration is when it is completed. If I completed warnings or errors, or successfully completed, failed. I don't want completed if it failed or if it's aborted. First, you I need all the failure steps. I don't want initiated, process, or completed. If any of the statuses integration is completed with any of the statuses, then trigger me a notification. You can directly pick a recipient or a group, like entire backend administrator group, or if it's a benefit integration and you want to notify all the benefits team, you can pick benefits administrator here and then get email. Or if you have a IP email that you want to share, you can use that IP email as well, IP at elpahealth.com or something. You can do that. And right here, the message content, how you are going to configure your notification message can also be determined. So you add a line, you can pick a text from a text field or from an XML field. I would say from a text field for now. This is an error message for, leave it like this. And then I'll add one more line. Here, instead of text, I'll pick the integration name for it. Integration system. This would give me the name of the integration. So this is an error for integration system. Is completed with status. With status, space, and then I would give event status here, because event status, so this will give me the status. In my body, what I would do is I would give the link of the event status. I would give the entire integration event. So they can click on the body or the message and they'll automatically go to the integration event. If you want to attach any files, you can attach here, like the deliverable files or output documents, anything directly if you want. Send an email, send it in an email. And then, okay, so now your notifications are configured for your integration. The next step would be configuring your sequence generator. The sequence generator, yes, we have enabled the sequence generator, so we're going to configure it now. So we have seen sequence generators earlier. Same thing, it just creates a file name, an automated file name. The last number used, increment for one. XML, it's okay. So you have your sequence generator done. You got rid of all of your warnings and everything. So I think we are almost done. Except for we have to go back to our field overrides again. Go back, take a step back on the field override. So here you have one thing to configure yet. You need to configure the eligibility, right? We haven't configured what type of worker should be included in the output file yet. So this is where we do it. Eligibility criteria. It's used to determine whether a worker is eligible for inclusion in integration output. This field should return a Boolean, right? So you can pick a calculated field on a worker object. So business object is worker or an integer system. You can pick any of the fields from any of these two business objects. And this true, whenever this calculation returns a true, or whenever this field returns a true, Boolean field returns a true, that worker is included in this output. Let's say I would say a field called worker is employee. I know this cal field returns true whenever a worker is an employee of a contingent worker. It returns true if a worker is an employee rather than a contingent worker. Right? I would include all my employees in there. Just click OK. So my eligibility is done. So now I will just log. Run now. Yes, okay. So this is another interesting thing here. So you have your date launch parameters. You have your as of entry moment, effective date, last successful as of entry moment, last successful effective date. So this is your core connector reminding you have four different fields, four different date fields that you can select from. Based on these four different date fields, your core connector will result in an output. Yeah. So your as of entry moment. So what are these four fields? So this is an as of entry moment. This is nothing but current entry moment always, usually. Right? So you have two fields in always on your core connector or anything. In Workday you have two. One is entry date and time. The other one is effective date. The difference between these two date and times are typically entry date and time is when the transaction entered. Transaction entered into the system. Whereas effective date is when the transaction became effective. Effective in the system, in Workday. Right? So there are two fields here always. Whenever the transaction is entered in the system, that is marked as entry date. Usually on the worker history, it is shown as your initiated date. So if you go back to an employee, go back to Blue Zone, this person worker history. So this is an entry date. So this is an effective date when this transaction will become effective. In this case, it is until 2020 July. And this is the entry date when this transaction is entered. And sometimes the transaction is entered and completed at the same time, but it will always, if the transaction is initiated at some time and completed at a later time, completed is always the entry moment. Like that is when the transaction is completed in the system. That is when the transaction is really entered in the system. Right? You would consider this as your entry and this as your effective date. Right? So you have your entry. So in your core connector, you have four fields. You have as of entry, and date, and last successful entry moment. Last successful date. Right? You have these four fields that you can pick from it. Right? So this is also, I mean, I'm going to talk in terminology of from and to, right? From to, right? So this is to effective date, sorry, to entry date. This is to effective date. This from entry date. This is from effective. So your last successful entry moment is basically from entry date, like from what time I need to look for transactions that are entered, right? And your as of is from until what time I need to look for transactions, right? So these two go as a pair. So these two go as a pair. Like this is your from time, this is your to time, right? And then the same with these two. From what date I need to look for changes that are active, and until what date I need to look for changes that are active. So these two determine what effective dated changes should be on the file. These two determine what entry dated transactions should be on the file, right? It is not an or condition always. It is more like an inclusive or, I believe. So more like if this effective date is today, let's say if this effective date is set as today, 8/11, you will not get any future transactions, even though those are entered in the system between these 2 days. Even though those are entered in these 2 days, those will not come in the file. Like if you draw a line, and then if you have 4 sets here, and let me go back to one other complex. I'm not taking it. This is so what are the transactions that are entered within this time frame? If you run with these parameters, right? If you run with these parameters in the sense, you have dates like this set up, right? So everything before your to effective date will be included. Right? In your launch parameters, let's put values here. As of entry moment, you would always leave it as current, so that you can't go into future because you can't enter transactions into future, like from future. You can make them effective in the future. Your effective date, you can put it today or you can go for future as well. Like until 8:30, I need to look all the changes that are entered between these two times. Your last successful is usually whenever you want it to be. Like you want to capture only changes that happen in one day, yeah, go with one day. From 12 a.m. 8:10 to today. And then last successful effective date, I also would say go with yesterday. So I'm looking for worker changes that happened, employee changes that happened between these two time frames, and are also effective between these two time frames. So I can also select workers, specific workers, to see whether they're in the output, but I will run for everyone. And if you want a full file, just click on this, and then extracts workers as of the entry moment and effective date, regardless whether they are changed or not. Full file is more for I don't really care who changed or who not changed. I just include it. Okay? But in this case, we'll include only people who have changed from yesterday to today. Just a minute. It will not take that much time. I don't expect any lot changes on workers. unless someone did an EIB. There are 7 workers. So there are 7 workers. The output document is 7 workers that are eligible. Now only 2 workers are in the output file. So here is what happened. So integration detected transactional changes for 7 workers. So there are 7 workers who have transactional changes. And then there are only 5 workers with data changes. And out of these 5, only 2 were included in the output file. So let's see what happens. So it's just stop, and then let's go for output files here. So you have different sets of files. So this is your XML. You just click on it, download it, and open it. This is your final output file. You're looking at the worker 1, 0 here, and then something changed for this worker. So he became active as of 2019-13. So as of his future hire date, he became active. So his prior value is not yet hired, and the status changed to active. Prior value is false, active, and the status changed to true. Similarly, right? You have your prior values for most of these things. So whatever you have prior values, that means that field is really changing. Rest of the information is as is. In this case, it's a new hire, so probably everybody will have. The next worker is this, and he is also the same. He's also a new hire, 2019-8-11. You only have 2 employees here. By worker, and drill down worker, you only see 2 workers. That means the output is really for 2 workers. But I thought 7 transactional changes appeared, right? So let's go back. Let's check the diagnostic audit. So diagnostic audit gives you employees who are eligible to be included in the file, like those have transactional changes, saying like, okay, these 7 employees, they have some transactions that happen within this time frame. Click on it. Then no, you have a home contact change and a work contact change. That's why this guy is rarely included. But no relevant changes in the worker information is detected. That means none of these data changes, none of these transaction changes really affected the field attributes that we have selected. You remember the field attributes that we have selected? New field attributes. So none of these 2, home and work contact, really impacted any of the field attributes that we have selected. That means probably their address did not change, maybe their phone number or email changed, which we really don't care because we didn't include them to be in the output. Right? We didn't include the phone data or we didn't include the email data. That's why those guys are not included in the output. It says no relevant changes to work, so workers information, so the worker has not been included in the output document. Next, David Moore. Same thing here. He has 4 changes, but really nothing changed. And also remember, home contact change. We were only looking for work contact, right? So within our attributes, we were only looking for work contact. We're not even looking for home. So I wouldn't consider his work changing anyways. If you want to go to his worker, this is one. These are the 4 transactions that are taken. If changes were detected on the worker's information and worker is for inclusion. I think this guy is one of the guys that is included on the file. Jim Robert. Yeah, Jim Robert, yes. So we are fine here. We have the high transaction that we included. Same thing here. Changes were detected on the worker's information. The worker is eligible for inclusion. 80 KPTM employee 00412. I think if you go to his name, personal, we went to the name. If the name does not have first name, try to see their names having first name, last name, what happens here. Oh, okay. They were entered in India. So it is not technically Western script. If you enable Western script, their first name and last name are blank. So they entered the local given names, but not the Western script value. So your code connector is typically getting it from the Western script usually. It's coming from here. So I would just say here family name test. And I would just confirm it. This PP is messed up. So I'm not going to fix it, but anyway, we'll see those errors. Same thing here, I believe. Not this guy is included. This guy is included. And these two people also have first name and last name errors. I'm guessing because they don't have Western script enabled. If you go to your event, you'll see 6 errors. So 2 for each employee. So AT CMT does not have first name, AT CMT does not have last name, same with Maha, same with. So your event is automatically showing whatever the required field and ranks, right? If you don't want them to error out, right? You go back to your attributes, in attributes. I would just remove it as required values. Just want to get the feel of it. So to see how the preferred names come out. I'm going to just relaunch it. It won't take a lot of time.
Krishna, one quick question. So is it required to run full file when we develop this integration to not to provide vendor delta file every time?
I mean, if you want to run a full file,
does the output the delta file?
If I just run full file here, it would give me all employees, irrespective of whether they changed or not, based on these 2 dates. That's it.
Okay, but so the integration, the delta file doesn't really depend on the full file generation, right? Not to get the changes from the previous value to the current value. Does it really compare?
I did not get that.
So does the integration really depend on a full file? Like, so in the full file we get all the data, right? So irrespective of whether it is changed or not.
Yes.
So in the delta file, so yes, does the integration really compare with the full file data, or it really gets information what is changed in the system?
So what is happening here is, if you go to, we look at diagnostic audit, let's look at data changes. You'll get the answer right away. 1 second. So you have your Jim Roberts, everything, right? So there's everything green here. That means something new, and this is changed. So this is your data changes audit, right? So you also have something called message audit zip files. So let's open one. What the integration on the back end is doing is, this is a delta file. Okay, remember this is a delta file. So whatever the integration on the back end is doing is, it's getting the get work, it's getting the get work on the back end. It's getting the current and historical information. So if you go to current, it has everything here. So I'll do a beyond compare. That's easy. This is the current. And then I can get the historical here. Okay. This is the historical. So these are coming from the transaction log. These are all the changes that happen on the workers that are not on the historical file. Right? So everything is matching except for some transactions. Like this guy has a contact change, which the historical does not have, right? So this is typically comparing both and getting you the information about them. Whereas full file, I think it should complete by now. This is the full file. We enable the full file option here. This is a full file. It really doesn't look at any changes, right? It just gets you the XML with every employee's information here. Pretty big XML right here. Okay. Now, what's your question again?
So I thought I thought the integration, the Delta file looks at the full file, and I'm looking at that XML tags, the previous and current. So it really does not work that way.
Okay. When I said full, when I said full and Delta, it's just a full file of workers and delta of workers. It's not the delta of fields.
Okay.
Like it's not like you only get the fields that are changed. You get the entire worker information if any of the workers' information is changed.
Okay.
Right? So, like this guy is just included because he has a change in his status. His entire information is included, irrespective of his first and last name or anything. His names did not change, but they'll still be included. Whereas full file, it just includes everything out. There's no prior value concept here. It's a full set of workers, 376 employees. In this case, it's just 2 employees, I believe. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions, anyone? Okay. So you have a lot of errors. Why do you have a lot of errors? I said I removed citizenship status. We still mark citizenship status as required. So these guys are still not on the file for state perspective reasons. Okay. And then you all might be thinking, okay, now within the field attributes, I only see these fields, right? What if I want something that is not here? What if I want something from a different object? Or what if I want some field on this core connector where I have to compute a value, like compensation? I don't want a total base pay. I want total base pay divided by 12. I want monthly pay. Right? All the information, you can't select it, right? You need to create it. So for that, what you'll do is you'll create something called field override. You create field override. Before creating field override, you need to create a field override service. So for that, you go to configure integration services and you scroll down. There is no field override service. You add it. You add a custom integration service. And then you create a service. There are a lot of services that you can create. My service type. You have a lot of services. You can create a custom object service, data initialization, delivery service also additional, or I'm going to create a field override service. I'm going to go back. I'm going to say create. I'm going to create a field override service. And then I can give the names to the field override service. I'll say base pay. My service is service. I can select business objects. mostly related to the worker. So you don't have a lot of options here. Whatever you have, that means only you can connect fields from these objects on a code connector worker. So I can go per position if I want, or I could still go by worker itself and get. Usually people go directly on a worker, and then they'll get more information. Oh, sorry, you can add more fields as well if you want. If you click OK, and then if you want to go back, you scroll down to the custom service you created, custom integration service you created, go to actions, edit. You can add one more field if you want. Okay. I have 2 fields now. Now, how do you give your for the actions? We'll configure field overrides. And then you, after your eligibility, you have this service extra, that service we created. And then you can give the field overrides if you want here. Okay, we have any calculus we have here. Yep. See, I think something we did. This is something we did. Yeah, we divided by 12 and multiplied by 2. Yeah, let's do it. CFAC total base pay, that best. Please give something. Let's see whatever it is. So you have your field overrides configured. Same thing, like how your other field attributes work. Field overrides also work in a similar manner. You launch your integration. Click OK, and if you want, you're only looking for changes from yesterday to today, you can do yesterday to today. Or if you want to looking for changes from last month, you can still do that, but it will take a little more time. I would go with, come on, right. I'll go with last week. Click OK. Okay. I mean, when we're looking for a week, of course, integration is looking for transactions for all the workers who have transactions in the last week and getting changes from them, right? So we also created an EIB full of transactions with all the 300 workers. So this might take some time. Yeah. Meanwhile, any questions?
Krishna, on this integration core connectors, this is all for reporting and integration to other systems, or is that the purpose? Only outbound,
yes,
right?
The main purpose is to send, outbound on. It's core connector work very well.
Sorry, what was that again? You faded out towards the end. What did you say?
No. The core connector worker is built for outbound type only, and it is mostly used for sending information to external third-party people, like third-party vendors who need changes file, or third-party vendors who need.
Yeah. Okay, and it's always on a fixed list of connectors. We can't create a core connector on object that Workday hasn't delivered a core connector, right? Or can we create?
No, it's fixed. No, we can't.
Connectors. Okay.
Yeah, it's only from the list of connectors you pick.
Okay. And is there any additional documentation on the finance, because on all the connectors list and related information? Is that available on community or a documentation somewhere?
Yeah, it should be available on community. Most of the part, it should be available on community. Some, I don't like this community because not everything is open for clients. Okay? There is some that is open only for the implementation partners, and they have more information. Like most of the packaged connectors, they are open for. They have a special section for the implementation partners. It's not displayed for end clients. We can't really completely have documentation on it. I think yeah, most of the connectors, I think you should find it.
Do they use extensively core connectors that are being used now in the Workday project?
Yeah, we use a lot. We use core connectors a lot. If we are looking for a worker file and there are a lot of fields, and we would go for a core connector instead of the ID.
And the reason is, as you mentioned, the effective date criteria.
Sorry, the effective date criteria?
What's the main difference? Yeah, I'm saying, what is the main difference? Like a EIB, you can put the worker and you can identify all the lists that you want, versus core connector. I still didn't understand the primary difference. What's the main advantage of core connector versus EIB?
The main difference is the changes. Core connector can give you changes, right? Whereas EIB will always give you a full file, right? You say same eligibility criteria, it will always give you all the 360 workers. You can't easily determine changes on a EIB. Can we?
Okay. Not necessarily, not straightforward. In the filter criteria, you can't just add, but here you probably can add as part of that criteria that you have.
Field, right?
Sorry.
I mean, yeah,
your voice
is
is
built in,
fading
right?
now.
So when you set up your field attribute. Oh, okay. So when you build your field attribute, right? So let's say in this case you have my internet connection is unstable. So in this case, you have a lot of field attributes here. That means these are all the fields that you want to include in the output, right? Whatever you have selected.
Correct.
And you were specifically saying detect changes in any of these fields. You're not letting it know, but it's automatically doing it for you. In an EIB, you have to specifically say detect it on my name. Like you have to create a cal field as of a prior date and cal field as of a current date, and also as of effective and as of entry as well. So you have to create 4 fields, 4 characters for each work delivered field.
Correct. Yeah, makes sense.
So that would be a lot, right? So then for that.
Yeah.
Krishna, can you explain end-to-end system in which core connector gets implemented? Like, for example, if you are sending data from Workday to SAP, what will be the steps that will be involved, like from the beginning to end?
I mean, first thing is you identify the required fields, right? What was that you want to include in the file. And then you decide whether you have to go with the core connector or whether you can go with an EIB or you have to go with the studio. Depends on the fields. If all of your fields are coming from worker objects or some object that is related to the worker, where you can create a field override itself. So you can use a core connector. Once you decide, then you pick all the fields and map them to the field attributes that you see here. You see all the field attributes here. You basically see whether I have all the required fields or not. If you don't have anything, you create your field override and you include those additional fields on your field override.
So what does this field override exactly do, Krishna? Field override.
So it is
Sorry.
in the additional section. Let me take you back to this screen really quick. Let's see the completed event. We just completed an event. So that should have the latest event, should have the additional information. You see, this core connector has this additional information section. So this is nothing but your field override. Whatever the fields you put in your field overrides, they come in here in the additional information section. So this is for the fields that are not available as field attributes. You see, you have only set number of fields in the field attributes, right? You don't have everything in the field attributes. You only have, and you can create calculated fields also. Yeah, you have name data, you have all these 74 fields. What if I want something out of the 74? What if I want a 75th field? Or what if I want to combine both first name and last name? Right? You can't just do it right away, right? You have to probably do it in XSLT, or you can do it in a calculated field saying combine using a concatenate function. You can combine these two, and you can use it in the field override section right here. You can directly use the concatenate calculated field here. These two are calculated fields. So these are like your additional extra fields that you can pick or you can create if they are not available directly, not available on your field attribute section.
So
Right.
which kind of fields do we want that we come to know based on what kind of third-party application are we supporting, right? Like for example, if we are integrating with SAP.
Third-party application. I mean,
Yeah.
you come to know by the list of fields that you want, right? If SAP says I need these 150 fields, yes, you figure out what are all the 150 fields, then can I get it from a core connector worker or should I create additional fields on a field override?
Okay, so in order to map Workday fields to SAP supported field, we first need to know the list of fields in both the systems and their compatibility with each other.
Yeah.
And what else do we need to know in advance?
And one other thing I would also always look for whether SAP will be accepting the XML, right? If SAP has a different file format, if let's say your SAP team says, okay, I don't need it in I can't accept XML. I need it in a different format. I need it in a flat file, right? In a CSV file or in a pipe delimited file or in a fixed width file, right? So now you have your XML, similar to how you did your EIB from a report XML to a file using an XSLT. You can do the same here. You can use this input to your XSLT. We'll see that in the coming classes how to use XSLT on a core connector. You would use your XSLT on top of your XML and create a CSV file and send it over to SAP.
So core connector only creates XML file, or does it support any other file system also?
It does have a CSV option that they recently released. So the output format, you can put a CSV. I think that would automatically, let's see, if I can get a CSV. Relaunch it. I think, yeah, we can get a CSV. I have never done a CSV because usually we'll go with XML and then write some XSLT to do it.
Okay. Have you worked on these two systems, SAP and Workday integration?
Not really. I don't remember. Yeah, no. But
Okay.
I mean, any integration, right? So you don't necessarily have to work. So I always think it on worker perspective. So what is the input? I mean, what is the output that we want at the end of workday? And it's SAP's job, right? After that, how do SAP consume and how do everything load on SAP? It's on SAP. So our job is to give them a file that they want in a required format that they request. So for that, we have different tools to do it. Right? You don't need to necessarily know SAP to build a workday integration.
Okay, so we are only concerned
Unless
with
you
the
work
reporting
on
of.
both.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're only concerned with what you are sending from workday, right? Because SAP is not your system. SAP is probably supported by someone else. I think in an IT organization, SAP is supported by someone else. Let's say SAP Finance. It is supported by some other team. And they would say, okay, I need a file with all this cost center information in there and all these workers that are reporting in this cost center. Just send me in a CSV format, and they will basically load it on their end. You have to build an integration to generate that specific formatted output file.
Okay.
Right, correct me if there is anything else in there. Yeah, and the CSV, I think it's only available below version 17. It's not supported. I thought it is supported after version 17 or above, but it is not supported. Yeah, you would always get an XML. There's no other option.
Okay, so to make this integration seamless and automatic, is there any like procedure like just to run the integration and it will directly deploy this data to SAP system, or do we have to do it manually like we are doing here, like get the output XML file and then do the transformation and then deploy it on the SAP system, or is
No,
there any automatic process?
so everything is seamless, right? So if you see when you go for an EIB in our last class, so if you look at your EIB, you have your report as your data source, you have your transformation as your XSLT, and you have your delivery, right? So whenever you run it, it automatically goes. If you don't want to run it, you can still schedule it. Go here, instead of run now, you will say run once in future or daily recurrence, and go to the schedule. And I would say recur every 1 day, recur every day at 1:45 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and start from today. I think I have to start from tomorrow. 1:45 is already done, and in the next month, something or you can go for 2020. And this schedule will run every day at 1:45, and it will run the integration automatically, right? So similarly, like Core Connector, you can also do that. You can schedule any integration or report in Workday. You would just schedule them and you just leave it. So it will automatically run. And if you have a delivery service set and SFTP and everything set within the integration, and it would deliver it to the SFTP server. Right?
So in the integration criteria, we provided specific dates, right? So what date it should really look for a Delta file. So when we schedule it, so do we need to provide any dynamic parameters?
Yep, good one. Yep. So as of entry date, right? So all these 4 date parameters, so we are actually hard coding them in the schedule. So how do you dynamically do it, right? As of entry moment, I would determine value at runtime. I would say instead of 811, I would say always pick the current moment date and time. So whenever the schedule is done, it is getting the current moment and passing it to as of entry moment automatically. Effective date, also I would say current effective date. And then last successful as of entry moment and last successful as of entry rate. These are a little tricky, right? So you want to get the last successful as of entry. And what does last successful as of entry really mean? You want to get the from entry moment. From what time you want the changes from, right? Usually, whenever you're sending a changes file in Workday or in any environment, you would only send changes that have occurred from the last time you sent the file, right? So let's say you have sent a file last week, okay, and then you have sending a file today again. So you're only sending changes that happens from last week to today. Let's say your last file was on 8.5, right? You are sending changes from 8.5 to 8.11, right? So how do you know you have sent a file on 8.5, right? Your integration might have run on 8.5, which should have sent changes on 8.5, right? That is how your last successful rate is. So you go for, you're basically determining it based on the integration event. You can go with as of entry, date, and time of last complete integration event. So if I select this is going to give me the date and time of the last completed integration event. So it should be on 8.5 because it's a scheduled integration. You're not manually running it in between. So on 8.5 it ran, and today it is running. So your last successful run date is from 8.5. It takes from 8.5. Effective date also, I'll take it as like that, as of effective date of last completed integration event. So these four will be now automatically given to the integration schedule, right? You get this from current moment, current effective date. This is from last integration event. This is also from last integration event. So these two are nothing but last integration events, these two fields. Whatever you have in these two fields on the last integration event, those come and sit in these two fields. So you're looking changes from the last time the integration ran to today. And the next time it runs, it will look from last time integration ran, which is today, to next week, whatever it is. And then your schedule is set then. It will run every day at 2 a.m. with all these integration criteria.
One more question, Krishna. So if there was an issue in the integration and we ran it manually, so all those dynamic parameters will be in sync with the next integration schedule?
Yes, you will mess up actually. So what will happen is when you run something manually, let's say this integration is scheduled, and if you run it manually, the integration will automatically think that these two are always coming from the last run, right? So your manual run is in between the scheduled run. It will take the information from your manual run. So it is always, I mean, it's up to the team's decision, it's up to the architect's decision or something. I would create ad hoc as well to run manually if you want manually. So I would clone this integration and I would say this is scheduled, and I would create a copy of this integration for you to manually run. That is not on schedule. If you want to run manually and send a full file in between, or if you want to run manually and send some different information in between, you can run that ad hoc integration or separate integration entirely.
But
this one is left on schedule.
But the data won't be in sync, right? So will it be in sync? Because we ran manually and we got some delta file. And
Data to the vendor?
Yeah. Again, if that scheduled integration will pick those changes again with that process, because the process is different, right? The name.
Yeah. Why would you run an ad hoc in between?
Because there could be some issues in integration, and like after the file was generated, we encountered some issues, or due to some maintenance issue or something happened, and we were required to change. I mean, something in the integration, and vendor asked me out of the schedule time.
Yeah, you were running manual to sync up data issues, right? You found some issue and you're trying to sync it up or correct it, so you run it manual, right? So I mean, that's where we have to think and see. Now I'm running it manual, so the next time it would only pick changes from the manual run, from whatever happened on the manual run. So whether you include your changes, all changes from the last time to your manual run, or you adjust the schedule again manually to pick from the different date and time. So you're trying to, I mean, something is on schedule. You interfered in between because you made a decision to sync the data or get something out of it, right? That means you are manually doing something which you are messing the schedule up. So that means you have a clear idea how to fix the data, even if you're running manually. So, I mean, the integration would not, so nothing in Workday or nothing in any technology would automatically know like something happened or somebody manually ran, so I have to do something, right? So there's nothing like this. So we have to think, or we have to do our due diligence and investigate. If I run manually, the next schedule is going to break. So should I fix that schedule, or should I run a different manual integration, or should I give them a file in a different format or something? So that all happens on a manual discussion, right? So a lot of people make different decisions, and it all depends on teams and everything.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, you see it a lot day by day, and when you are working on a, I mean, I do see it a lot for my clients. Whenever they feel, okay, I missed this, the employee did not include in the file, can you send this employee again? It's like, okay, if I send this again, I'm breaking my schedule. So I have to go into production, change the schedule again, and make sure that the data is in sync in the next one, so you won't miss anything. Payroll teams, because that is where people. So let's say there is some business people like payroll team and all. When we get into peak ops tomorrow, you'll also see that difference. So payroll, we ask them to manually run. So this is an example from my client right now. So we ask them to manually run. So there is this last successful run date also there concept. So we schedule them every month. It runs once a month, and then they decided to manually run in between. So they ran in between. So the schedule is basically messed up. They're expecting it to get changes every month for the full month, but their manual run in between actually created a ripple effect. So it kind of got only changes from the manual run to today, what had happened in that between time period. Right? So they came back to and said, okay, what happened? So we said, okay, you always have to set your last successful run date to a different date when you're running. You can't just assume it will work. So they went back, they noted down everything down. So whenever they run it, they now keep that last successful run date in there, in an Excel or something. And whenever they want to rerun it, they'll go back, enter the last successful run date and rerun it. So it will happen. It will happen a lot. That is one of the main issues with people see with core connector workers. That's why what we did is we created clones for everything. So we created an ad hoc for everything. Most of the core connectors, we expect them to be rerun. So we'll run that ad hoc, which is independent of the schedule, and that ad hoc will send the information out there. And this schedule will send the information again. But we know we are sending it twice, and the vendor also knows we are sending it twice, and they're happy with it. So we're fine.
Thank you. So this peak off, is it really related to payroll integrations or something different out of it?
Yeah, Peacock is a payroll interface common output file. So it is more of a connector. It is a connector, but it is a payroll connector. When you are using a third-party payroll system like the ADP or Ultimate, I mean, we have different payroll systems, right? So when you're using a third-party payroll system and you want your HCM information from Workday sent into the payroll system, Peacock generates like Core Connector Worker, it generates a file, XML file, which is sufficient for the third-party vendors usually. Like that, the data Peacock generates is mostly sufficient for whatever the third-party vendor is looking for, third-party payroll provider is looking for. So that is how Peacock is generated, and the change and the way it looks for changes and everything is also related to the payroll thing.
It is called payroll interface common output file.
Yeah, payroll interface common output file. There are two like that. You have PC as well, which is payroll interface. It's PC is payroll interface changes effective file. So there are two, Peacock and PC. That's an interview question always. People ask what's the difference between PCOF and PG. They just ask it because even though they don't use PC, they just ask it. So PCOF is payload interface common output file. We'll get to it tomorrow as well, but to your knowledge, PCOF is payload interface common output file, which always gives you top of the stack information. Like if there are multiple changes for a worker, you'll only get the toppest row information as of the toppest row. PC is more of if they have multiple compensation changes in a pay period, you would get both of the rows saying from this date to this date, this worker has this amount of change. From this date, this worker has a different amount of change. So you'd get multiple lines based on effective dates. For PG, the tenant needs to be grid enabled. So it's a different style tenant. Workday tenant itself, it's a different style. I mean, UI, everything is same, but the backend, they say it is grid enabled. They enable more power or they give it more enhancements or something. They give it more integration power or something on the backend. So regular client tenants are not compatible for PG. If you want it, you need to request Workday for a grid tenant. You pay more and you get it, and then you implement PG.
Okay. Thank you, Krishna.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. Yeah, it's almost 1.5 hours already today. Yeah. Any questions on the core connector? Nothing good. Yeah, I'm also a little tired from moving and everything, so I would wrap it up here and we'll continue tomorrow. We'll go with PCOF and everything tomorrow, and I also have document transformation. So we're gonna have at least 1, 2, 6, and 3. We're gonna have 9 more classes at least. We still have a long way to go. We're still in connectors. Okay. Okay.
All right, Krishna, please upload this
Thank you.
quickly. I want to review one more
Yeah.
time just to understand what happened today. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Krishna.